everyone, it's Alice, and today we are doing a TBR for spring. This is my second favorite season after autumn. I really like this time of year when the days are getting a little bit lighter and brighter and it's not so cold and gray. And whenever a new season comes around, it always makes me really excited to read. And I've compiled a pretty big list of books that I want to read, and my hope is that I will at least get to some of these. If you've read any of the ones that I mentioned though and you really loved it, I would love to know, because sometimes it's just really hard to pick what to read next. The first few that I've picked out are sort of in the literary fiction world, at least I think so. So we have Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors, and I've had this for a while and I really just need to read it. And I think it's a sort of blend of literary fiction and contemporary fiction and a little bit of romance. It follows a 24-year-old British painter who moves to New York, and she meets this man who is 20 years her senior, and they sort of impulsively decide to get married. And obviously this changes both of their lives. And I think we just follow them in the aftermath of that. And a thing that sounds really interesting about this one is that I think it's told from the perspective of these two characters, but also a lot of people around them, which is always interesting. This is one of those books that I feel like I just need to go into it and see what I find. I don't really know what to expect, but I'm excited to try it out, and it does seem like the kind of book that is all about the characters, which I usually love. The second one I have is Hello Beautiful by Anne Napolitano, and this is also a book that I've had for a while and I really want to read. It follows this man who I think doesn't come from the best childhood. He has a lot of tragedy that he's experienced in his life, and in college he meets this woman and they fall in love, and this woman has this whole family and he's sort of taken into that family. And the thing that intrigues me is that this woman has three sisters, and I think that these sisters are like a big part of the story, and I really like stories about sisters, so I'm very intrigued about that part. I think there's some darkness or something from the main character's past that resurfaces that sort of shakes everyone. And it doesn't just shake this relationship, but it shakes the relationship between the sisters, which sounds very interesting. Again, it sounds like a very character-driven story, and I've heard really good things about this book, so I'm very excited. I also have Study for Obedience by Sarah Bernstein, and this is one of those books that I feel like I just want to go into not knowing too much. I feel like that's the best way to read this book. I don't know why I think that, but I do. All I really know about this one is that it follows a woman who moves into her brother's house after the brother's wife passes away, and I think she moves in to be his housekeeper, which is a little weird. And I think things just get weird in the house and also in this town where they live, and I don't know. It just sounds like an odd little book, and it's one of those books that I just gotta try and see. The next part of my stack is mostly fantasy, and of course I have two books by T. Kingfisher because I love her and I want to read something by her again soon, but I don't really know what to pick, and I'm sort of in between these ones. So either Paladin's Grace or Swordheart. Paladin's Grace follows two characters, I think. One is a paladin and one is a fugitive, and they don't know each other, but somehow they end up in a situation where they both witness this assassination attempt that goes wrong, and I'm assuming that the assassin, whoever that is, like sees that they have been seen, and so these people, they go on the run, and that's all I really know. It sounds kind of fun, and I really like this author's like fantasy worlds, and I did recently get the three other books in this series, so I really need to get on this. I am also considering Swordheart though, because it's just a very beautiful book and it sounds really whimsical and magical. It follows a woman who unexpectedly inherits this estate from some family member, I don't really know, but she gets there, and with this inheritance there's also all these like family members that are very money hungry, and she like can't get away from them. And I think at this house or something she finds a sword, and there is a man living in the sword, or like I guess the spirit. I don't know how it works, it's fantasy. There's some sort of man in this sword, And it just sounds really weird but also magical. And I think this man who lives in the sword is like a knight and he wants to protect this woman from her family members. And it just sounds kind of fun. If you've read any of these or both of these, I would love to know what you thought. And also, if you feel like one of them in particular is perfect for this season, I would love to know. I also have this one picked out. It's Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. And this is on my TBR for this year as well. I really want to get to this book, so it's why I keep mentioning it. It's the story of this woman who gets cursed, basically, into an old woman. And I think this sort of happens accidentally, and she needs to seek out this powerful wizard named Howl to break the curse. And Howl famously lives in this like moving castle. I've said this before, but I really like the movie adaptation of this, and I know that the book is quite different. It's a little weird because some people tell me it's very similar and some people tell me it's very different. So I don't really know, but I'm excited to see this world, even if it is very different, because it just sounds magical and whimsical and a little strange. Then we have The Everlasting by Alix E. Harrow, and I really want to read more from this author. I read Starling House not that long ago and I loved that book. And I have heard amazing things about this one, so I'm very excited to have it. This follows a failed soldier and struggling scholar who is obsessed with the legend of this orphan who became a knight and a hero in this place wherever they are. I think it's like a historical figure, so they don't live in the same time, because I think this main character actually goes back in time to meet this woman, and that's all I really know. I think that the life of this woman is not as straightforward as maybe legend makes it appear. And yeah, it sounds very magical, and I've heard so many good things about it. And I don't really want to know too much. I think I'm just gonna go into it and see. But I loved the writing in Starling House, and I got so sucked into that book. So I hope the same thing happens with this. The next one I feel has a very spring appropriate cover. It's The Secret Service of Tea and Treason by India Holton. This is the third book in the Dangerous Damsels series, I think it's called. And these books are like, they're set in the same universe, but they don't follow the same characters. In this, we follow two spies who are a part of this like secret intelligence agency or something like that, and they have to pretend to be married to infiltrate this pirate group that I think is trying to like topple the government or something like that. And so they have to pretend to be married, and this is a little bit of a romance book as well, so I'm sure we know where this is going. All of these books are set in Victorian England though, but with various forms of magic, like for example flying houses. Like in the first book, there are these houses that they fly around in that are kind of like ships. Like, it's really funny. And these books are just a lot of fun. They're very entertaining, and usually there is some sort of adventure or quest, and I love a good adventure. Next, I've picked out some translated books because I'm always trying to read more of those. And this first one I got very recently, and it is obviously perfect for spring. Like, just look at it. It is The Vanishing Cherry Blossom Bookshop by Takuya Asakura. And obviously I need to read this when it's spring. It's about this bookshop that only appears during the cherry blossom season, and it's run by this woman and her cat, and their whole thing is trying to like help people find healing and solace. It sounds wholesome and lovely, and if the inside of this book is anything like the outside, it's gonna be really, really nice. Then we have The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barbery, and this is one of those books that I just have a really good feeling about, and it is on my TBR for this year as well, so I really want to get to it. And I don't know why, but I just feel like I'm gonna love it. It's set in Paris, where there's this big grand apartment building, I think, and we meet some of the people who live in this building and work there. I think one of them is like the concierge or something, and this person is like a secret art lover, and the other is a pretty young girl, I think she's like 10 or 12, who's a genius, and she has decided to end her life. And I think the story sort of takes off when this wealthy Japanese man moves in and he's able to like see these characters for who they really are, which is what they need. I feel like I've had really good luck with French translations in recent years, actually. Like, I've read some books translated from French that I've just absolutely loved. So maybe that's what makes me think I'm gonna love this one. I don't know what it is about translations from French, but I've had really good luck with them. Then we have a book in Norwegian, actually. It's on Utregning og Romfang by Solvej Balle. And look at me trying to read books in my own native language. But this book is actually translated from Danish. And whenever I come across books that I want to read in Danish or Swedish, I do usually try and read the translation in Norwegian because these languages are very similar to each other. And so it just feels like it makes more sense to me. I am really bad at reading books in Norwegian and I really need to like get back on it. This has been translated into English as well though. In English it's called On the Calculation of Volume, and this is actually the second book in the series, and they're all just called the same, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the first book we meet a woman who is stuck in a time loop. She relives a day in November over and over and over. And I really liked that book. It was kind of like strange, but it ended in a way that made me very curious as to where we're going to go in this next one. And I'm also just curious as to where we're going with this in general because I think there are 6 or 7 books in the series. And I'm like, how are we, like, where are we going in 6 or 7 books? Like, that's pretty crazy, but also very intriguing. I also have some mystery books. So we have The Bangalore Detectives Club by Harini and Nagendra, and this is set in the 1920s, which is one of my favorite time periods to read books in. And it follows this woman. It's set in India as well. It follows this woman who is quite headstrong and very intelligent, but she has resigned herself to a quiet life with her husband, who is a doctor. But then something happens at a party. I think she's in a garden and she sees someone like run away, like a shadowy figure, and then half an hour later someone is found dead, like the party turns into a murder scene, and somehow she gets involved in this. I don't really know how, but she gets involved. I think this leans a little bit into a cozy mystery. I'm not totally sure, but maybe not completely. I think maybe it's the cover that's making me feel like it's a little sort of cozy, but I don't know, and I haven't heard a lot about this actually, but I don't know. I really like books set in this time period, and especially when it's like a mystery, and I do love a good amateur sleuth. So I think this will be good. The other one is The Agency for Scandal by Laura Wood, and the spine of this actually has all of these flowers on it. I think this is what made me think like maybe this is a good book for spring. I don't think it's specifically set in spring. I don't really know, but I really like this cover design actually. It also has flowers on the back. This one is about an all-females detective agency in 1897, I think. And I feel like, do we really even need to know that much more about this? Like, that sounds amazing. I do think we're following one of these detectives and she gets involved in some sort of case with blackmail and some missing or stolen jewels. It all seems very complicated, but also like a lot of fun. And I've heard a lot of really good things about this book and this series. I'm really hoping that I'm gonna like this first one because the other books in the series also look really good. Lastly, I have a couple of epistolary novels because I love reading those. So we have The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. It's such a long title, by Mary Ann Schaffer and Annie Barrows. And even though it has a very long title, everyone tells me I'm going to love this book, so I'm excited to read it. It's set in 1946, I think, so right after the Second World War, and we meet a woman who's either a journalist or a writer, and she's looking for her next, like, project, and she comes across it when she gets a letter from a man that she's never met who lives on Guernsey Island, and I think he starts telling her the story of what happened there during the war and this like book club that appeared because they needed like some sort of cover for doing something. I don't really know. But she gets a letter from this man and this like starts off the whole story. That's all I really know, although I will mention I have actually seen the movie adaptation for this, but this is one of the good things about having a terrible memory. I don't remember anything from that movie. I remember the person who plays like the woman, and I thought she was really beautiful, and I remember like some of the scenes of what Guernsey looks like in the movie, but I can't remember any of the plot. So this will be relatively new for me. Maybe when I read it, I will, like, it will spark my memory, but I honestly really doubt it. It was ages ago since I saw that. So yeah, I also don't know if the movie adaptation is like a good adaptation or not, and I don't remember if I even liked the movie, but yeah, I'm excited to read this and discover the story again, I guess. Then the last one I'm super excited about because it's one of those books that I heard about when it came out and I immediately wanted to read it. Like, I was immediately interested. And then recently, the Women's Prize for Fiction longlist was announced and this was on it. So that makes me want to read it even more. It's The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. And this follows a woman, I think this is set in contemporary times, and it follows a woman who, her whole life, she has written letters to people in her life to make sense of things. And I think the story is about what happens when she gets a letter, and that letter drags up something from her past that she has tried to forget. And I guess the story goes from there. I've seen some really good reviews for this one, and I've heard that the main character in here is like very interesting and just great, and I love characters in books, so I'm very excited about that. And I also just really like epistolary novels. They are a little bit difficult to find sometimes. Maybe I'm not good at finding them, but I have read a fair few, and I do usually really enjoy this sort of storytelling style, I guess. So I'm excited about this. I also really love this cover. I think it's because it has birds on it. I don't think the birds are like a thing in this book or that appears, but I just think this cover is very cute. That was the last book that I had to show you today, though. That was my whole stack. I do think this is a little ambitious. I don't think I'm going to be able to get to all of these. I am heading into a sort of busy period in my life, and I have exams coming up, so unfortunately I have to read like other things that are much more boring, but hopefully I will get to do some recreational reading as well, and I really hope I'm going to love at least some of these. I think especially this like Vanishing Bookshop, the Cherry Blossom book. I have to read that during spring. I would love to know if you have made a TBR for spring though, or if you've just picked out something that maybe you want to read, or if you'll just see where the wind takes you. It is funny because I am actually much more a mood reader than anything else, and so I do usually just go by my mood, but I also love making TBRs. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but oh well. That was it for today though. As always, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!